The Scar. Sundaram and Mayank were very good friends and so were their parents. They grew up studying in the same school and college. Mayank's father was an industrialist who also owned good agricultural farms in a village. They were located in the Himalayan valley, now known as Himachal or Uttarakhand. Mayank took over from his father. Mayank and Sundaram were sipping a cup of coffee after breakfast in the balcony. Mayank from his bungalow was looking the beautiful lush valley and so was Sundaram. He was painting the same landscape. He was choosing colors appropriate to the scene. Some hilltops were even covered with an early snow of winter which was still to advance to its peak when the whole scene will don a white cloak of snow. Suddenly, there was an explosion in the valley, rudely shattering the peace and beauty of the lush landscape. Sundaram was disturbed. He was very sensitive, aesthetical, and soulful, dedicated to beauty, religiously. He uttered some crude epithets in annoyance with the ugly explosion and those responsible for creating it. He turned to Mayank whom he called monk with a query in his eyes. Mayank's reply was equally disturbing as he clarified, Sundaram, this wound on the landscape as you say is to set up a pharmaceutical factory to heal the wounds of the community. This is a small sacrifices for the bigger goal, curing the sickness of men with the aid of science and technology. Nature has often to be controlled and molded in service of men. Sundaram, however, was not convinced. He said, I love beauty. I can't stand the ugly damage and wound on the bosom of goddess nature. Beauty is equally an important value. I know you are a monk in heart, wanting to heal and soothe suffering. I do appreciate your sense of service and compassion, that's why I call you monk. But, you could have built a factory at some other place without destroying this ravishing landscape. Both laugh, in spite of their difference, finish their breakfast and second cup of coffee for the day. Sundaram was a painter, a trained artist, graduating from JJ School of Art in Bombay and also having some overseas experience in fine art academics. He had distinguished himself in painting landscapes ineffable beauty seeing which a man could step into a meditation. His landscape was unfinished and frozen and he was in mood to complete it, incorporating the ugly wound of explosion. This breakfast was a morning ritual for the two friends before they parted for work. Sundaram was an art teacher in a couple of schools in the area, trying to inculcate and refine the aesthetic foundation of children. When they mature into the careerist and the commercial adult, this aesthetic impulse fades, involved in the rat race for survival and prosperity. Mayank was trained as a chemical engineer besides having degree in pharmacy. He had inherited the pharmaceutical manufacture unit of his father, Sunkar Singh, who had settled in the Himalayan township and started manufacturing generic medicines besides whiskey and beer, IMFL, India-made foreign liquor, India. Their brands were popular and they rival the brands of Mohan making in Kasauli, Shimla. After taking over from his father, Mayank closed the liquor department as he didn't want to aggravate the alcoholism already prevalent in the valley. He focused on generic medicines which could heal the community at low cost compared with the excessive rate of the branded ones, Indian or foreign. His medicines were backed by research and included some Ayurvedic herbal products. He was starting a new factory for vitamins, minerals, and food supplements, and the construction of which caused the explosion in the valley mentioned earlier. Special research and survey was done for local availability of raw material, labor, and needs of the people in the valley. His market research was based on people whom he wanted to serve. He was planning to distribute his medicine at a cost much lower than the brands, India or foreign. This was also the reason of other rivalry of other manufacturers in the area who were afraid of losing the big slice of their market. Though Mayank's profit margin was low, but it was made up by increasing turnover. Mayank was facing some sort of a price war with his profit-seeking competitors. His leadership ability along with his human approach kept the aggressive rivalry at bay. But the bitterness was heating up with his new project. Sundaram's father earlier was the technical head in Sankar Singh Industry. And, now Sundaram was in the board of directors, in charge of architecture, landscaping, interior designs, housing, clean and green environment. Mayank handled the technical and commercial side. Sundaram designs the workers' colony with equal elegance and comfort. He had his studio and share of a cottage on a hilltop and often took out his easel, paints, and canvas on the spot where he wanted to paint. A new entry on the stage, in the life of Sundaram, was Naina. Sundaram was painting a field of smiling sunflowers when he saw a beautiful girl singing in the company of the sunflowers, who were shaking their head in approval and appreciation of Naina. The breeze loosened her tresses into dark mischievous clouds around her face, and her scarf, Oddhani, covering her torso, was dancing in the breeze. It was a scene straight out of a romantic poem or painting. Sundaram included her as an exquisite touch in his painting of sunflowers, which was already half finished. His painting was a confluence of human and natural beauty. He was surprised at the rich magnetism of his own painting. He called the girl, requesting her to pose for a portrait. She did come slowly with a bouquet, and while offering it Sundaram, she stumbled. Sundaram caught her in his arms. She was blind. She disengaged herself and apologies for her stumbling and disturbing his painting session. There was no light in her eyes, but her beautiful face was lit up with a bright smile. She sat down for a conversation as he painted her portrait, a beauty who couldn't perceive her own beauty due to blindness. She said, "I am a distant cousin of your friend Mayank. I am residing in his guest house after finishing my graduation. I have come to work as an apprenticeship in Mayank's industrial setup. Both my parents died in a car crash. 10 years back, my blindness is due a Diwali accident." Sundaram and Naina fell in love at first sight, though she was sightless. They could communicate through the language of sound, words and touch. She became willingly his regular model. Sundaram's canvas was now dominated with Naina's face and figure in 100 expressions and designs. Through his eyes, Naina could see the world, his paintings and herself. He had made her feel and see her own beauty. Mayank was a friendly witness to this love affair brewing between his friend Sundaram and his cousin and protégé Naina. He was her friend, mentor, and guide with a brotherly flavor. After 6 months of this galloping affair, they were engaged in a gala function with music, dance, flowers, blessings, and greetings. Mayank was of course the main organizer of the function, which was celebrated in a cottage. Sundaram and Naina behaved like lovebirds waiting for marital bliss. They spent most of their waking time in company of each other, though they still didn't date in bed. To this extent both Naina and Sundaram were conservative. Meanwhile, Mayank was trying his best with money and concern to get Naina's blindness cured. He was in touch with best eye specialists and surgeons in India and abroad. Naina had to go through a series of test and procedure, but without success. Mayank was launching a new product with a blend of herbal and allopathic medicines. It was found very successful through clinical test and was expected to be a wonder drug. It was a gala celebration when he invited the managing personnel of his rival groups who were involved in hatching out a disturbance or a sabotage in Mayank Group. In conversation with his rivals, Mayank talked of cooperation and collaboration as superior to competition, which is often unhealthy. The former strategy is far more productive and beneficial for everyone involved in rivalry and cutthroat competition with no holds barred for damaging each other. Some rival CEOs were convinced by Mayank's argument, but others weren't. Sundaram and Naina were busy in premarital honeymoon. He is an adoring painter and she is a ravishing model, ready to give any pose, gesture, and expression in different makeup and get-up as designed by Sundaram. Some of this paintings blending human and natural beauty in figurative or modern style became popular in the galleries and were acquired by art lovers and agents at a good price. Then a tragedy happened. Sundaram was driving from Delhi to his cottage in Mayank's campus. Naina was also with him. They met with an accident on the hairpin bend of treacherous hill road. Luckily the accident was not serious. Naina was bruised a little, but Sundaram's condition was more serious. After process of healing and reconstructive surgery, he had ugly wounded patch on his neck and chest and also part of cheeks. This scar remained even after it had medically dried up, a bleeding wound of disfigurement of Sundaram's beautiful body and face. It was a trauma for him, mainly for ugly wounds which scarred him. He was not happy that his life was saved, but was plunged into mourning due to his disfigurement. He couldn't stand any mirror or polished surface which reflected him. He got all such surfaces scrubbed out from his cottage. He became a recluse, avoiding everyone, including Mayank and his beloved Naina. Naina of course didn't mind the scar on her lover's body, in fact, she became extra caring and loving, but this irritated Sundaram, who rebuffed her. "I can't stand your pretty, fake consolation and love. I know you hate my scarred and ugly body." Similar dialogue was exchanged between him and Mayank, who was trying to support reconstructive plastic surgery by the best doctors in India or States. But this irritated Sundaram, who thought Mayank was having pity and fake sympathy. He told Mayank to keep his sympathy and care to himself. Mayank was in grip of full neurosis, even with a shade of psychosis. His psyche and self-respect was more wounded than his body and face. Most of his painting in this phase were on themes of ugliness with a touch of distortion. He felt he had become an ugly monster. All the love and empowerment of Naina and Mayank was of no avail, sank more and more in his bleeding psyche. One painting which included nymph-like beauty of Naina and his ugly self. He gave the title, Beauty and the Beast. Sundaram's mind was also aggravated due to his jealousy. He found something suspicious in the relationship of Naina and Mayank, who seemed to shower excessive love, care, and money to make her comfortable and to cure her blindness. Nobody invests so much on a distant cousin. Sundaram thought bitterly. The innocent and brotherly intimacy of Mayank with Naina seemed fishy. Thus, bleeding with arrows of jealousy and disgust with his ugly self, he sank deeper and deeper in neurotic mud. Then something happened which was at once highlight in the life of Mayank and Naina, but an aggravation of his neurosis. Mayank was successful finally, in locating an eye surgeon in the States who had brought light to the eyes of many reflected by blindness similar to Naina's. The doctor was invited to perform the surgery on Naina's eyes in a nursing home in Shimla. It was successful. Naina wanted to see her beloved fiancé Sundaram when she opened her eyes without the dark screen of blindness. And, when she opened her eyes and looked at Sundaram, she screamed in painful surprise. Sundaram ran away from her. He became wounded further by Naina's scream, which he interpreted as her fear and hatred. Seeing the ugly face and body of Sundaram, his self-esteem and confidence was further dented by perception that Naina couldn't accept Sundaram as lover and husband due to his scarred body. He sank deeper in the mud of his neurosis, and his jealousy for Mayank and suspicion that he had illicit relationship with Naina made his situation worst. He painted more pictures on the theme of Beauty and the Beast. And surprisingly, his paintings were appreciated and sold well in the art mart. The situation was becoming intolerable for the three persons involved: Sundaram, Naina, and Mayank, who was surprised at the reaction of Sundaram to Naina's cure of her blindness. His agony, hate and anger against himself, Naina, Mayank, and perhaps the destiny was racing to a crescendo. The toxic dark bubble had to burst. Sundaram was painting particularly distorted and fearsome painting, bleeding heart and an eye and a monster feeding on flesh like a vulture. There were many symbols like a vulture. Naina couldn't control herself as she saw this painting standing behind his back. She burst out, "Why are you killing your sense of beauty and love which was special for you? I love you with all your scar. Why don't you believe me and Mayank, who loves you both as a dear brother and friend? He is ready to invest any amount to cure my eyes and reconstruct your scar into normalcy. You have isolated yourself even from us, and love to suffocate yourself in the toxic smoke of self-hatred and anger even against me and Mayank. You are no longer the same Sundaram." At the mention of Mayank, Sundaram exploded, "Don't bring Mayank into the picture. I know you two have a special relationship with a pretense of being just fraternal and friendly. Nobody would invest a fortune in getting your vision back if you were just a distant cousin. How can you love me, the disfigured man? A beast beside the beauty? You get lost. I don't want any of your pity, sympathy, and solace, your so-called love for me. After getting your eyes back, you can't stand this beast and monster." Naina was so hurt and enraged by Sundaram's jealousy and doubting her love for him, especially after getting back her vision. She took a couple of paint brushes and tried to prick her eyes with them, saying, "If my eyes are your enemy, let me wound and blind them." Sundaram was not prepared for this turn of event. Meanwhile, Mayank was also appeared on the scene to save the situation. To sobbing Naina and shocked Sundaram, Mayank revealed a secret: "We both love you, but you are not to see this through your glass of jealousy and self-disgust due to your disfigurement. I tell you the secret of my special relation of Naina. Naina was my own sister. My father had impregnated his own pretty secretary and unknown to anyone. Naina was brought in a boarding school away from the eyes of our family and friends. In one Diwali celebration, he did invite her, saying, she was a dear friend's daughter. Due to my own mistake, sparks of sparkler damaged her eyes, causing blindness. Later, when dying, my father confessed to me and my mother, told the story of Naina, and asked us take care of her as his daughter. Thus, I have honored my father's command before dying. She had been treated as a darling sister, ever since. My guilt being responsible for her blindness has motivated to do everything to get her eyes back. I have succeeded in commitment and desire. She has got her eyes back. I am sure, you will get your disfigurement reconstructed, as I have booked the best eye surgeon in states to do this. I have already purchased tickets for you and Naina." During this climatic scene, which may appear melodramatic, the eyes of all three were brimming with tears of gratitude, love and respect. After all, Mayank was a monk. Sundaram, picking Mayank in his arms, said, "I do believe that you are a monk and not mere Mayank." Sundaram got married to Naina, and after reconstructive surgery in Germany, his scar was erased 90%. And the new unit of Mayank completed 1 year of its success, and a triple celebration was organized. The anniversary of the new unit, marriage of Sundaram and Naina, and healing of 90% scar on Sundaram's body. But the story is not finished yet. Through the celebration, a sabotage was perpetrated by rivals by manipulating trade union leaders and employing some hoodlums. They set fire to his office in the factory. Somehow the fire was aborted by Mayank and his security, and efforts of fire brigade and Sundaram played a critical role in saving his friend from the flames. The sabotage was aborted with small damage, and the saboteurs were arrested. Peace reigned in the area of the new unit. Production was resumed in full swing, but there was one memorial victim. Sundaram, in course of saving his friend, burnt a small part of his cheeks, leaving a small scar. When Mayank wanted to remove it by plastic surgery, Sundaram refused. "It is a badge of honor. This scar is the memory of my effort to save you from injury. I am proud of it. I won't erase it." Mayank didn't have anything to say, except a bit of moisture in his eyes brimming with gratitude. Naina was happy witness to the scene between monk and Sundaram, who worshipped beauty. But his worship now included love, compassion and friendliness, connecting Shivam and Sundaram.